Good morning, chairpersons, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, at the outset, I'd like to express my heartfelt thanks to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to talk about the relationship between diabetes and HIV. What I'm going to talk in the next 10 minutes or so, try to identify the link between diabetes and HIV, just highlight what are the proposed mechanisms for diabetogenesis in HIV positives, and what are the concerns for management in case of antiretroviral therapy and management of diabetes when we deal with such comorbidity. Now, these are all known to us that there has been a significant rise in number of people with diabetes from 108 million in 1980 to 422 million in 2014. Similarly, the prevalence has gone up from 4.7% to 8.5%. And importantly, diabetes prevalence is rising in the middle and lower income countries, including ours. And it's diabetes, as we all know, is associated with a lot of morbidity and mortality. And when you talk about HIV, till the end of 2018, we had around 38 million people living with HIV across the globe. And we have got significantly new 1.7 million got infected in the last year. And there is significant deaths due to HIV. Despite antiretroviral therapy, access has increased to large number of patients. Now, when you try to look into the association between diabetes and HIV, when you talk about the highly active antiretroviral therapy, the prevalence was low. It ranged between 2 to 2.6%. But first hint came from the MAX cohort, which showed that there was the MAX cohort was essentially a cohort of more than 5,000 gay and bisexual men in US, which showed that there was a prevalence of diabetes mellitus of 14% among HIV positive persons on antiretroviral therapy, as compared to only 5% of HIV negative gay people. And the incident rate was also high, 4.7 cases per 100 years of follow-up. And another very large HIV cohort of DAD study that followed around 34,000 pale HIV for nearly 4 years. That shows that the baseline diabetes prevalence was 2.9%, and the incidence was high, 5.7 per 1,000 years of follow-up. And the risk factors or the predictors that they could identify were higher blood glucose levels, increased BMI, high TG, relatively older age, and an important HIV-related factor was the CD4, most recent CD4 less than 200, and of course, lipodystrophy. These were predictors of new onset of diabetes. And importantly, the DAD cohort had shown that there is an association between the use of older antiretroviral drugs like the first generation protease inhibitors like nelfenavir, indinavir, saquinavir, ritonavir, as well as the first generation NRTIs or nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors like zidovudin, stavudin, didanosine, gemcitabine, etc. Similarly, the Swiss HIV cohort also more than 6,000 people with HIV, that the prevalence as well as the estimated incidence was found to be high. And the traditional risk factors as well as the advanced HIV disease like CDCC were also found to be the risk factors. And strong association was seen with use of protease inhibitors as well as nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors. This is one cohort of Danish cohort that actually showed a little different results. Between the period of 1996 to 1999, it showed that there was a higher incidence of diabetes when older drugs were used. But in the period between 1999 to 2010, there was, the studies revealed that there was no increased risk for diabetes, and the authors concluded probably the link of diabetes in HIV was probably absolutely drug related only, that too due to use of drugs like protease inhibitor first generation as well as nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors. However, this study was a little challenged because of they didn't look into account the contribution of acute opportunistic processes as well as the ethnic differences were not actually looked into. The issue was recently been sorted out by two large nationally representative cohorts from US, one the medical monitoring project of around 8,600 HIV positive people, and one general survey of National Health and Nutritional Examination Survey of 5,600 general population. It has shown that analysis of these two health surveys have shown that prevalence of diabetes was around 10.3% amongst HIV positives, and in the general population it was lower, 8.3%. And after adjustment of risk factors, the prevalence of diabetes was found to be 3.8% higher in HIV positives. And the risk factors, importantly, that came out during this analysis was HCV co-infection, higher education, women, non-Hispanics, BPL, obesity, and young age group of 20 to 44 years. And looking into the mechanism of the proposed hypothesis that has been proposed for development of diabetes in HIV positives, the most important contribution perhaps comes from antiretroviral drugs, HCV co-infection, mitochondrial dysfunction, elevated circulating free fatty acids, increased fat, elevated pro-inflammatory cytokines, and certain genetic predispositions. Antiretroviral therapy, it can be due to, it can cause diabetes either as a consequence of increased weight gain and improvement in well-being following antiretroviral therapy, or it could be due to some certain side effects like metabolic dysfunction, insulin resistance, dyslipidemia, lipodystrophy, etc. Boosted PIs I have already talked about, atazanavir, darunavir, lopinavir, sacubitril, and ritonavir. They are all have been incriminated in diabetogenesis in HIV positives. But the important point that we need to remember here that hyperglycemia stimulated or induced by protease inhibitors are actually reversible. When you take up protease inhibitors in such patients, after 3 months, if you check, the blood glycemic control gets back automatically. Increased insulin resistance as well as decreased release of insulin due to interference with blood-4 has been proposed. So also CRABP1 inhibition leading to inhibition of PPAR, and that promotes insulin resistance, adipocyte inflammation, and release of free fatty acids. NRTIs like zidovudine and stavudine, digoxin, they are also incriminated. Similarly, lipodystrophy is an important factor. I'm not going into the detail of such because time won't permit. Like amongst the co-infection, I've already highlighted the HCV co-infection has been, HIV, HCV co-infection patients are highly prone to develop diabetes mellitus due to increased hepatic TNF as well as hepatic steatosis. And coming to the TB, we all know that TB worsens glycemic control, and poorly TB, as you all know, that one of the commonest opportunistic infections in HIV, and they worsens glycemic control as well as we also know that the poorly controlled diabetics might augment the severity of infection in TB and TB disease. Small studies from Nigeria and Turkey have shown that TB patients with IgT, when they were treated with anti-TB drug, following 3 months or 3 months or to 2 years, the OGTT comes down to normal. Autoimmunity and endocrinopathy has also been incriminated in the genesis of diabetes in HIV positives. Now, what are the concerns about diabetes treatment in PL-HIV? That's very important. As we all know, metformin is the cornerstone of management of type 2 diabetes, but metformin has got significant drug-drug interaction with dolutegravir, the preferred INSTI that is currently being used across the globe. Even the National AIDS Control Organization has also accepted this as the preferred first-line option, and perhaps by January or February next year, we'll be launching in the national program as well. Dolutegravir, when combined with metformin, leads to increased metformin exposure, so that can lead to lactic acid. That's where the prescriber we need to be a little bit concerned. Saxagliptins, amongst the gliptins, all goes well with antiretroviral drugs, except that saxagliptin blood level goes up with ritonavir. So saxagliptin daily dose must not exceed 2.5 milligram per day. On the other hand, the SGLT2 inhibitors go well with all antiretrovirals currently prescribed, except canagliflozin, whose blood level gets reduced by ritonavir. So instead of the usual 100 milligram dose, if we start with 100 milligram dose, it might require an up titration to 300 milligram per day when we used with the boosted PIs. Now, coming to the concerns of issue of HIV management. What we need to do, the first generation drugs, we have already phased out drugs like stavudine, diadenosine, gemcitabine, and the first generation PIs, which are no more in use. And long-term use of zidovudine, which is still used in the WHO as well as in the NACO guideline, and lopinavir, ritonavir, these are all associated with diabetes, associated with the development of diabetes. But then again, these drugs are still being used, but the US guidelines have actually, taken them off from the shelf. In NRTI-based guidelines, the best regimens are found to be associated with lowered incidence of diabetes mellitus, but then again, efavirenz has a whole lot of, just 1 minute more, I'll be finishing. Efavirenz-based regimens are associated with a lot of CNS side effects, depression, etc. So that has no more a popular drug, particularly with the current higher dose of 600 milligram. A newer formulation with 400 milligram is in the market, and WHO is advocating to use it as an alternative. Now, dolutegravir, the most popular NSTI at this point of time, which is being used globally, and the WHO is promoting it like anything, but recent studies have shown it is associated with a very unacceptable weight gain. Some studies have shown, the advanced study has shown that by 48 weeks, people with dolutegravir, they gain weight by 6.4 kg. And this is not only the lean mass, there is also increase in the fatty mass as well. More prone when TAF, tenofovir alafenamide, is combined with dolutegravir, and it's more in females. And finally, I would say that there is an increasing overlap between two pandemics, one infectious disease, HIV, another chronic metabolic issue of diabetes. And we just need to know that HIV positives are at increased risk of diabetes at younger age and even in absence of obesity. First generation protease inhibitors and NRTIs that we have already discussed need to be avoided at any cost, and people who are put on dolutegravir, which is the current drug of choice, need to be followed up closely for development of diabetes and other metabolic consequences. And we need to, while dealing such comorbid conditions, one has to look into the drug interaction between antiretrovirals and the oral anti-diabetic agents. And really we need to have a very well-designed multicentric prospective cohort is needed to further understand about the interactions between HIV and diabetes and its consequences. Thank you. Thanks for your attention.